Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness, where we will be sharing insights into the world of mental health and wellness as we explore traditional medicine and holistic healing options. It's time to have new conversations about mental health. Join Mara James, the founder and CEO of the Hugs for Life Healing Center, as she guides us along this journey. And now, let's talk wellness.
Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness. I'm your host, Mara James. I want to say thank you for joining us for today's conversation. During Let's Talk Wellness, we focus on healing, understanding, growth, and spirituality. This is part of the Hugs for Life Healing Center, a subsidiary of the nonprofit called Extraordinary Lives Foundation, where we are devoted to supporting mental health awareness and providing resources for children and their families. As the founder of these organizations, I have the great joy of collaborating with a team of amazing people to help bring healing to children and their families around the world. You can find all of our information at elfempowers.org, and you can find the link in the show information. Now, let's talk wellness with today's guest, Srecko Buterin. Srecko is a spiritual healer. Welcome, Srecko.
Hello, Mara. How are you? It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, and especially because I was having a session with you maybe a year or two ago. Timing is always off with me. And you were the one that initially told me that it was time for me to start a podcast. So it's so exciting to actually have you here as a guest today.
Oh, it's a great blessing and honor for me, too. And I remember that day really well.
Yeah. So, Srecko, can you tell our friends watching and listening, as a spiritual healer, were you always spiritual?
No, there was a time when I started as a kid. I was very spiritual, going to church regularly. And then probably in my late teens, I kind of fell out of it in my 20s. And I came back to revisit that part of my life in my late 20s.
And what brought you back in your late 20s to your spirituality?
It was a big tragedy in my life. My dad almost passed away. It was in a coma for many days, I think over 30 days. And I started praying, and that prayer led me to where I am now.
Wow. So you realized your gifts around 19, 20 years old?
I had a lot of experiences as a child and as a teen as well, but definitely I became more aware of them when I started praying.
So tell us, when you say these gifts, what do you mean by them?
Yeah, one of the gifts is feeling, so I can feel people's emotions, where they're at, if they're having some tragedies, if they're feeling really happy, if they have a good relationship with God, I feel all of that. Other times too, if they're, let's say, depressed, I can feel those emotions as well.
Wow. And so then you use this term God, which was everyone has a different definition. Does it matter what religion somebody is? And, if somebody doesn't believe in God, or if they believe more universal, do you feel things differently with different people?
Well, I'm a practicing Christian, and I always encourage people to find a personal relationship with God, to pray every day. That's something that's very important, I think, for everyone, 10, 15 minutes of prayer, and have an intimate relationship with God.
Love that. And I love to say that when we pray, we speak to God. When we meditate, we hear from God.
Yes.
So when your dad was in the coma, and it was a really scary time for you, and you were meditating, when you were praying, how did that prayer, when you're speaking to God, did you actually hear back? And how did that really transition your emotions?
Yeah, the first thing I noticed that first time when I prayed after seeing him in the critical care unit was I felt an overwhelming sense of peace come over me, and I never had that peace in my life before. And then at some point, probably within the second or third week of praying, I realized, okay, it's going to work out. He's going to be all right one day.
Wow. And if this is just like an intuitive thought or idea in your head that you had?
It was more of a feeling rather than an external or internal voice, but I definitely felt peace. And so the peace was kind of leading me that everything was going to be okay.
Just when you say that, I take like a beautiful breath of air.
Yeah, me too.
Wow. And so what jobs did you have throughout your life and before you embraced your healing gifts?
Oh, yeah. Oh, geez. Let's see. Out of high school, I was working at Bank of America as a teller. And then after graduating from college, I started doing a little bit of substitute teaching. And then I got into import. So importing and exporting furniture from Asia.
Okay.
I got into real estate, and I moved to Croatia for many years. And over there, I opened up some hostels, and then that led to a couple of spiritual centers and more real estate. So it was a combination of many things.
Beautiful. And when you said, so before you said like you could feel people's emotions, do you have to tap into it, or is it every time you're speaking to somebody, it's right there?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Yeah. So it's kind of, for me, everyone's gifts come from God. And so if you take the time to really pray and meditate and ask God to turn your gifts on, so you go from a very low level, kind of like warming up as a professional athlete before a game or something. And it's the same thing for spiritual healing.
Okay. Wow. So can you ever feel someone else's emotions if they don't give you permission to do it? But you're given, like, are you ever given permission from God to actually help them if they might not be open to it?
Yeah, part of, I guess, doing the spiritual healing is you're always of service to everyone. And whenever you have an opportunity, you try to be of service and help whoever's in need in any way that you can. And sometimes it'd be something like offering someone help or offering a hand or some advice, or other times it could be a healing, or it could be a hug, or it could be, something a little bit more, a prayer even. So I'm always focused on what that person that's in front of me needs the most, according to what God shares with me.
Okay. And at what point did you switch over to becoming a full-time spiritual healer?
Yeah, that was probably about 20 years ago, I'd say now. Yeah. So
And
in 2003, 4.
Nice. And what made you finally decide? I'm sure God guided you there, but yeah, what was the deciding factor?
It just felt like this deep calling within my heart, just to be of service and to help more people heal as well.
Right. That's so beautiful. And so what does that look like, your healing practice?
The practice, well, in terms of the individual healings, it always starts, the first thing and the most important thing is a person loving and forgiving themselves. And through that forgiveness of themselves, then comes the next one, is forgiving other people that hurt them. And that opens up then the door to start having that loving foundation with God too, because most people feel a little distant from God when they're still carrying that, hurt or pain.
Yeah. What about, like, I know through my forgiveness journey, of course, most of us don't realize that I have to forgive ourselves. But for me, the last straw was actually forgiving God, not realizing that I resented him for some of the trauma I went through when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point that you make, that a lot of people, upon that forgiving of selves and forgiving others, were able to get into that next step, which is coming into a loving relationship with God, having that communion. Those are big steps.
Do you think it's possible to have a relationship with God when we don't forgive ourselves or others?
Well, I always look at it the same way, like God is right above us, shining a big light, and we just have to kind of look up and say, oh, there's God.
Okay, so regardless of what kind of resentments we're holding on to in our heart, we're still able to connect?
We're still able to connect, but then there's a process of getting closer for sure.
And that process, does that involve praying more versus releasing and healing the heart more?
It's definitely prayer. Every morning, I always share with everyone, take 10, 15 minutes and just share with God what's going on. Just say, good morning, my name is so-and-so, and just have a conversation with God. Share with God your heartaches, your triumphs, your challenges, and then, be silent for 5 minutes and just listen to what your body is telling you, listen to what you're feeling. And then just give thanks for everything as well. And that 10 or 15 minutes really starts that relationship going.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And are there particular types of clients that you've been working with?
I've worked with every faith, every denomination, every background, every socioeconomic background. So no limitations.
Oh, that's amazing. And that not only the background, but the different types of issues. Do you work with a whole variety of different issues?
Oh yeah, spiritual issues, emotional, mental, physical sometimes too. Mostly emotional and spiritual though.
Right. Okay. I know when my middle child was 16 years old, and there was just a darkness that took over him. And luckily, I knew you back then, about
Mhm.
7 years ago, 8 years ago, and I just felt like there was a darkness that took over, and I was horrified that he was going to literally pick up a gun and shoot me, himself, or something even bigger. And I asked you if you would work on him through me, using me as a surrogate, without him even knowing. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. I do that for a lot of clients, where the usually a family member or friend will be as a surrogate. And then, why does that? God allowed that because God always wants us to receive the healing, especially for ourselves and those that we love, those that we're looking for the healing or that are in need of the healing. And so during that time, you become kind of the patient, but I'm actually working with God's blessing, working through you for your son.
Right. And it doesn't matter how old the child is, or if it's a sibling, or, a spouse. Like if someone needs help with the other person, do you have permission to do that?
Um, it's not so much that I have, but God always allows it because God always wants the love and the healing to come through.
Right, right, right. Because
Yeah.
when I was telling my older son what I was going to do for my middle one, he's like, is that allowed? And you don't have his permission. I'm like, I'm coming from pure love and light. I just want to help him. He was suffering.
Yeah.
But it was, it made me think for a second, am I stepping over any boundaries? People have their own journeys. So when someone has a journey and there's this darkness that takes over, is
Sure.
that supposed to be part of the process?
Yeah.
Um,
In those like certain situations, obviously our intention is always we want to intervene out of love, and so God always wants us to do the right thing for ourselves and for those that we love.
right. Well, so many people. So have you worked with a lot of clients that are suffering that, like a suicidal?
I've had a lots of, not only those that are having suicidal thoughts and tendencies, but also those family members that suffered a loss of a family member as a result of a suicide.
Oh, so you'd work with the family if the person, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Afterwards, obviously, they contacted me afterwards. Yeah.
right, sure. But for the ones that were suicidal, can you share with us, like what kind, like what that session would look like, and what how you're really able to help them?
Um, yeah, I can go into detail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, without sounding too dark.
yeah, no, I won't. I won't let it get that. So in the Bible and a lot of different spiritual books, it always talks about two sides. It's like a team of light and a team of dark. And so many times, especially in the Bible, it talks about spirits taking over a person. And a lot of times when that spirit takes over, it's able to communicate with the person either subconscious or consciously. And that's where they start developing those kind of thoughts about, oh, life doesn't mean anything. I don't believe in love. No one loves me. And it's not because they themselves believe it, but rather that dark force that's communicating to them.
That makes sense. And you just made me think of something. I'm kind of like, you have a coin, like half heads and tails. So
Uh-huh.
with this, like light and darkness, do you think that the world is half light and half dark? I'm hoping that there's
Oh,
more
yeah.
light.
No, it's definitely more light, but at the same time, we have free will to experience it based upon our choices. And so sometimes we have to go through those moments of a little bit of darkness to see the light, for it to
Absolutely.
become very clear and bright for us.
Right. I always say that, the bigger the break down, the bigger the breakthrough, and God willing that to break through. Um,
Yes.
are there things that people do that, like how do these dark forces, or whatever you want to call it, kind of, attack or attach to people?
Mhm.
How do we clear ourselves? How do we prevent it from happening?
Oh, yeah. The most important thing is being loving, having love inside for yourself. The second one, obviously, well, I should say the first one is always having a loving relationship with God. The second one is loving thyself and loving everyone else too. So when we
Mhm.
look at everyone, we can't see their negative. We have to see that there are either brother or sister, or mother, father, friend, but someone that deserves to be loved as well. And once we get into that space, then a lot of those false beliefs start to kind of fall away. Once we're really able to connect with everyone on a loving level.
So, in your opinion, because I know for me, for the first 48 years, I had zero relationship, zero concept of God. And then I have this rude and beautiful awakening. Of course, I'm diagnosed with mental health, bipolar disorder. And to me, I'm like, yeah, bipolar, two polarities, heaven and earth. But then I realized there were things I need medication. There were things that I did need to heal. But do you think somebody can be really, truly happy and mentally healthy without a relationship with God?
It's a tough question for me. I believe it's possible for some certain people, but then I have to pose the question, would they be even happier with that relationship? And then I have to say, yes, they would. But I've met some people that are very devoted to serving humanity, working, food kitchens, being of service to the homeless, and they, the level of joy and compassion in their hearts is incredible.
Oh, I always, taking care of others. I just think we should be teaching this in school, right? Because it just makes you realize there are other people that are worse off. And when you give, you actually receive back.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and when I see them, I get deeply touched by their level of, commitment to humanity.
Yeah. If everyone could be like that.
Yeah.
So talk to us like how mental health is affected by, I guess if we say the word energies, if that's a good terminology to use.
Yeah, so there's a spiritual element which affects the energy element, right? The spiritual touches the energy, and a lot of times on that, it happens on a physical level too. So a lot of times somebody might have a sore back, a sore neck, really chronic headaches, and it's kind of starting in that spiritual place, affecting that energy place, which then goes into the physical.
Can you give an example of that, please?
Yeah. So, for example, those dark energies, once they are in your space or on your body, they'll start to create like a little hole in your aura, or start putting pressure there, or focusing a lot of negative energy in one spot wherever you're the weakest. And little by little, their goal is to cause more pain, more hurt, and to take advantage of you on a deeper level.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm remembering a little over a year ago when we were told that we had need to move out of our other house. And I found this house that I fell in love with, but I became so nervous and anxious that we weren't going to get it. And I remember I was going to sleep that night and my heart was beating so fast. It was not even, I wasn't nervous. It was just, I felt like something, happened. I could barely sleep that night. I was having all these racing thoughts. And then thank God the next morning you were available for a 10 o'clock session and clearing. And I think that you shared with me, like when we have lower vibrating energies, like if we're in fear, anger, sadness, resentments, what like there's an opening in our aura. Is that how you describe it?
Well, it's kind of, let's say like this: if I'm speaking to you negatively the whole day, or even introducing some negative topic, because it could be something like about a scary movie, or I'm using the wrong language towards you, or I'm calling you a bad name, that natural defense we have when we step out of our love and the faith, and we start to then become a little weak, a little vulnerable. And during that phase of vulnerability is when we become vulnerable for the spiritual world too.
So I have a friend, and she works with somebody who's pretty toxic. They have some mental health challenges. And what advice would you give to my friend every day who's sitting right near this other woman that it's really, and it's hard for her to love her unconditionally, because it's really like attacks her.
Yeah. So the first thing would be just to have the relationship with God, to pray every day, and also to pray for that person, whatever they're going through, their challenges. The other one is they have to forgive. They have to forgive that person. And then that kind of breaks that chain within that relationship of why they're suffering, as well as why they allow the other person to be so mean,
Oh,
the third one, if they can find enough love and compassion in their hearts to say, hey, I love you, I want to help you, I want to be your friend, or whatever it is that person needs, then that creates that next step of healing for both of them.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I noticed for my clients, whenever somebody has an issue with somebody, I'm like, okay, what's it reflecting in the past? And I know for my friend, she had a relative that had mental health challenges. And I think because she hasn't forgiven either that person or that situation, she's manifesting this scenario, and it's going to keep happening until you go back to the initial trauma and forgive that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes it could be trauma from childhood or teen years, or they get reminded of something, or something triggers them. And that part of prayer, which I mentioned, is that opportunity to really forgive that person and themselves.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Forgiveness.
But the beautiful
the key
thing
to it all, and the hardest thing to do.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's definitely available for all of us. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it really starts the miracles to flow.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen that. It's just, I've been on I finally forgiven after 7 years, but it's been quite the journey. And if anybody ever thinks, it's easy, and I always, there's that saying, forgiveness is on a conscious level, resentment's on a spiritual level, and to really dig deep to all the different levels and layers and forgive, like, as you said, the three, right? That yourself, another other person, and God for allowing, quote unquote, that situation to happen.
Yeah, I have a story to share, which was probably about like 20 years ago. I asked God, I go, dear God, let me take on all that pain that I caused before when I was, wild in my youth. And then sure enough, God gave me all that pain that I caused everyone else. And it felt horrible.
Oof. Wow.
Yeah,
You probably got really sick from that, huh?
well, it wasn't so much sick, but it's a definitely, let's say, a lot on your shoulders to carry all at one time. But what I realized through that experience, and thankfully to God, was that we all do it to one degree or another, and so by allowing God to help us by asking for that forgiveness, we let go and we help those other people that we really love.
That's so beautiful. We're going to take a really brief break, and we're going to come back and we're going to hear some of your favorite client stories. So everybody hold on. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
In these shifting and changing times, more and more lives are being impacted by mental health. The Extraordinary Lives Foundation, also known as ELF, is transforming the way people view and navigate mental health challenges. Their mission is to improve children's mental health and wellness and support families by providing educational tools, resources, and awareness events. ELF encourages families to recognize symptoms, overcome the stigma, and reach out for help. Through prevention, early intervention, and holistic treatment, we believe many of the big problems facing today's youth can be transformed within a generation. Extraordinary Lives Foundation is excited to offer the Hugs for Life Healing Center, growing a worldwide network of approved holistic healers and bridging the gap between traditional and complementary healing options. Visit the Extraordinary Lives Foundation website at www.elfempowers.org to find out more about their resources and events. Together, we can change the conversation around mental health. We hope that you're enjoying today's Let's Talk Wellness podcast. And if you have a topic that you would like us to explore, we would love to hear from you. Simply email us at info@elfempowers.org. That's info@elfempowers.org. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Wellness. I'm your host, Mara James, and today our guest is Srecko Buterin.
Thank you, Mara.
Welcome back. So we're really excited to hear some stories that you've had with some of your clients, and if you've noticed, clients, and if you've noticed any similarities in different types of sessions that you were experiencing.
Yeah, there's always a lot of parallels and definitely a lot of similarities. Recently, I've had a lot of clients, women of different ages, 20s, 30s, even 40s, that always calling me up and asking for help, that they want to get married, or they don't feel like the boyfriend that they're with is ready to get married, or they're having these challenges. And usually it's for those reasons that we mentioned earlier, is that they're holding on to some anger from past boyfriends, past relationships, sometimes issues with mother and father, and even childhood, when maybe they got rejected as a child by in first grade from a boy in class. And then these little, let's say little bumps along the road becomes bigger and bigger mountains, and usually within one session they're able to clear it up. And I get calls back like 2 months later, we got engaged, we're getting married. And then I realized, everything God shares in terms of the forgiveness is true, because it takes them to that next place of love.
That's beautiful. And in those, so do they have to go through a forgiveness process versus just having the session? Like, what does that look like?
Well, definitely the session, and then they start doing the prayers and the affirmations and having that personal relationship with God, and continue on that path of forgiveness and the path of love as well.
And are they able to do the forgiveness by themselves, and then voila, they're happily on their way to
Yeah.
marriage?
Oh, everyone's able to do it on their own. But when they call me, then I'm able to help them a little bit, take a big step forward, and with God's blessing. But everyone can do it on their own for sure.
Wow. And then have you noticed anything during COVID or post-COVID that has come up a lot in your sessions?
Yeah, I think the fear of COVID really kind of kept everyone at home, and so that fear was very challenging for most people. Now during post COVID, and COVID's kind of wrapping up, so to speak. I feel people are going back to church. People are meditating a lot more. People are looking for more spirituality, more spiritual understanding. Going back to workshops, learning, talking, sharing about their experiences and how they feel now. And we're in a much better place now for sure.
Yeah, that fear. Oh, the world loves to keep us in fear and anger. It's terrible.
Yeah, that was a good dose of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And are a lot of your clients, are they having more emotional challenges versus physical?
Well, there's a lot of clients because they're stuck at home. That was a big challenge. But usually the clients that I get, the majority of them, I'd say, is mostly spiritual and then emotional, and every now and then more on the physical level. But there's always a combination of all the elements for every.
Right. Okay. And can you share some other, of course, I shared about my personal story with my son and how you had a profound impact in making him happy again. Are there other stories that you could share that with different clients that have had emotional challenges, either with themselves or their children?
With themselves or with their children? Oh, okay. So same situation. A lot of the kids these days, they watch a lot of TV and they're very focused on, let's say, a lot of negative games. And so during COVID, all the kids had the headphones on in front of the TV, occupying their time with that. And then after a while, especially when you're playing all those negative games, that negativity it gets absorbed into you on a emotional, spiritual, physical level. And then a lot of parents are complaining about how their kids seem very distant. They're very, easy to get angry. They don't want to do anything else. They only want to, play their games. And then I have to do that surrogate type of session to kind of clean them up. And then I also give them instructions. I go, okay, it's okay to play a game, but let's, minimize it. Maybe a half hour, an hour, before dinner, a little bit before sleeping. And that way the parents are spending a little bit more quality time with the kids rather than the kids being in front of the TV.
Right. So the kids are in front of the TV or the computer a lot, and a parent notices they're starting to get angry or irritable more. Is there something that the parent can do without having to have you or a healer help them through that?
Yeah, the thing I always recommend the most is having something positive to do, as well as a family event where they're engaging, they're talking, they're sharing. There's a level of communication and care between everyone, which the kid will start to respond to, go, wow, this is a lot better than playing the game.
Oh, so like a positive, like TV, meal together?
Yeah, meal together, maybe reading a book together, having, a walk together, a combination of a bunch of different things. But as long as they're all doing it together, yeah.
Right. So explain, if you can, in layman terms, if somehow a kid watching, playing a game with the headphones on, and then like how that actually affects them on all those different levels you were saying.
So let's say they have the headphones on, and now the visual of the game, and sometimes it could be something very diabolical that's going on. And then during that time in the subconscious mind, they keep on seeing this diabolical figure, right? And then that natural immunity that I mentioned earlier starts to come down. So from a very strong protective layer, now it goes down to maybe 50%, 20%, depending upon how much time they're on the computer. And during that time, we all become vulnerable when that natural layer of immunity starts to drop.
Okay, let's talk about that. So a natural protective layer, immunity, is that an energetic protection?
Spiritual and energetic, yeah, from God.
Okay, and then that gets kind of weaned down. So to keep that strong, is that like that prayer every day, asking God to keep a strong layer of protection around us, or what would that sound like?
Yeah, depending upon, well, definitely it's good to teach the young kids to pray as well, to have that personal relationship with God. The other one is as a family going, to church or to temple, praying together as well before bedtime. And then it helps to stay spiritually strong.
Okay, interesting. Gotcha. Yeah, and it's interesting, you talked a lot about forgiveness before and going there, like with children, when they get hurt. I know for me personally, but a lot of us parents, they always say hurt people, and we weren't taught about like having compassion and forgiveness that much. So we might not be the best teachers for our children to have, sometimes like the parents will actually get mad at the child that hurt their child instead of teaching and they become childlike instead of teaching their child to have compassion, maybe to forgive the child that hurt them.
Mhm. No, definitely. So it's always twofold. It's always the healing of the parent, or parents, as well as giving the child the opportunity to heal as well. So if we're all in it together.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. What other favorite client stories can you share with us?
Yeah, I've got quite a few over the years. I had one recently with a Sufi Muslim, a young woman, maybe in her late 30s. And then during that session, she was asking for, help. She was going through a lot of emotional stuff, a breakup with her husband. And then I heard a message coming from my guardian angel saying, tell her that her teachers at the mosque, they need a help. And she started getting very angry with me, like, oh no, they're very, very spiritual and very gifted. I go, I'm just sharing the message. Don't get mad. I'm just delivering the message. Don't shoot the messenger. And then, sure enough, maybe within a couple of weeks after I had that session with her, she sent me a photo of her teacher. They just came out of the mosque, and you could see something there, like on his shoulder, right behind him here. And then, I circled it.
What was it? A light?
No, it was something that was bothering the teacher, and yeah, one of those low. How can I say?
A dark energy.
Yeah, dark energy. Yeah, very dark. And then she realized, what I shared with her during the session was true, and then she took it to her teacher, and her teacher confirmed that it's been there for a long time, and it's been bothering him, his wife, and I'm sure a lot of other people as well.
And so she had a picture of it and showed you. Did she see it in the picture?
No.
Oh, so she was just showing you. I know a lot of times when you're doing a session for me or with me, you'll ask for a picture of somebody that we're family member that we're working with. And so in that picture, you could see different types of energies.
Well, everyone could see this, but she didn't notice it within the photo. It's kind of like you'd really have to focus on that place.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. And so then did she begin working with the teacher?
She helped the teacher, and then by giving that message and sharing the photo, and then he called me maybe a few weeks after. Then I gave him a session as well.
Wow, that's so beautiful. But then you said she's begun working with the teacher too.
Oh, she's been attending that mosque for many years. Yeah.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Awesome. So, not to put you on the spot, but I'm good at that. What has been in your life has been the biggest challenge to go through the forgiveness process?
Ooh, the biggest challenge. You know what? I get them probably every week. Literally, there's always someone that just isn't ready, and that's okay, because I don't know when that person's going to be ready. But the most important
I'm talking about you having to forgive.
Oh, for me having to forgive.
Yeah.
Yeah, once I started, I didn't have that challenge, to be honest with you. I wish I could say I did. I definitely spent a lot of time forgiving my mom, my dad, old relationships, but the biggest one probably was forgiving myself. Yeah. So it was about recognizing, even though I thought my intentions were always good and noble and pure, reflecting on it later on when I started praying, I go, oh, hold on. And, I kind of made a couple mistakes along the way.
And what age do you think you had that realization about yourself?
Yeah, that was definitely, so I started my path about 23 years ago. So within a few years of starting my spiritual path. Yeah.
Wow. So what would be your words of wisdom, advice for our friends watching and listening?
First and foremost, just take 10, 15 minutes just to pray every day. That's by far the most important thing everyone can do. And during that prayer, just be very honest, be very open with God, share with God what's going on. Like I mentioned earlier, your hardships, your desires, everything that you've been going through, what you want to achieve in your life, and then just listen to God. And you're going to start to feel things. God will start communicating. It could be an emotional feeling. It could be something you feel physically. It could be a quick vision. It could be many different things all at once. But, and you could also kind of journal that too. Keep a little notebook. And when you're done after 10 or 15 minutes, write those little pieces of information down, what you experience. And you'll see in the course of a month, 2 months, that things will start changing and you're going to start feeling much better. You'll sleep better. You'll have more peace, more patience. And, but don't rush into it. Just be easy. Take it easy. Yeah, be patient.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about journaling, and I know when I do it, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to write about, and all of a sudden I'm like writing all the stuff. I don't, have to read it later because I don't even know what came through me. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, so that's probably the biggest advice I can give to everyone. It's something that I do every day as well.
Beautiful. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I have a website. They can look me up, my first name and last name.com, as well as I don't know how to get a hold of me via my phone number, but
okay, so the website, and that's SUREE. No, can you spell the last name? I don't want to ruin it.
SRECKOBUTERIN.
.com?
.com, correct.
Beautiful. And we'll have that in the show information listed.
Yeah.
And are you on any social media as of now?
I don't, I'm a little reluctant sometimes to get on social media. I'm just not that big of a techie person, but going forward, I plan on doing a lot more.
God will guide you if you're supposed to be there.
Yes. Or give me the people to help. Yeah.
Absolutely. Amen. Beautiful. It's been such an honor and pleasure having you here today.
It was a great blessing. Yeah.
And all of our friends out there, don't forget, you are amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm praying for you, Mara, and for everyone. And God bless you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk Wellness. This podcast has been brought to you by the Hugs for Life Healing Center, a division of the Extraordinary Lives Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. If you would like to listen to more conversations like this, we invite you to subscribe to our mailing list at www.elfempowers.org to be notified when our weekly episodes are published. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to bringing you our next conversation on Let's Talk Wellness.